Next up, the opioid crisis here in Massachusetts. Earlier this week, Charlie Baker signed a bill into law aimed at drug prevention rather than prosecution, and among other things, better controlling access to addictive drugs. But for those already addicted to opioids and heroin, it's a very different problem. Getting help can be incredibly difficult, which is why the city of Gloucester started its groundbreaking program last year, which lets addicts turn in their drugs and paraphernalia without fear of arrest and get real help. The program has already helped hundreds of people, and as Stephanie Leyden shows us, the reach goes well beyond city lines.
There's no heat in here.
There's no heat. You can pretty much see your breath.
Nathan Lamoth endured last winter's bitter cold here on his family's back porch.
I just had a bed in here.
He was rarely allowed inside. A heroin addict, he stole whatever he could to pay for drugs.
I got kicked out of the back porch for stealing from my mother.
By spring, he was living on the streets of Fitchburg, contemplating suicide.
I wore out every relationship I had with anybody. I couldn't ask anybody for anything.
But just as he hit rock bottom, Nathan's mother did give him something. A ride to the police department some 80 miles away in the town of Gloucester.
She had seen this post on the Gloucester Police Facebook page. Turn in your drugs and instead of facing arrest, police will help. Stung by 4 overdose deaths in a matter of months, Gloucester's police chief was targeting his community. But the post went viral with 2 million hits.
We had people coming from California. The help was not there.
Someone came from California to Gloucester Police to get help for addiction.
That was our first intake.
If the chief sounds more like a social worker than a police officer, well, it's all part of the job. Navigating a treatment system notorious for turning people away. He remembers the night Nathan Lamoth showed up.
He came in and he looked around and said, "There's no way I'm getting anything." And I remember talking to him and saying, "You're not leaving until we get you treatment. Don't worry about it."
Lamoth was in detox that night. Then police found him long-term treatment in Florida. 7 months later, Lamoth remains in recovery and closely connected to Chief Campanello.
He's one of my main supporters.
How ironic is it that the person who ends up sending you a lifeline is a police officer?
Yeah, that to me never happens. To me, it's usually either I'm running from them or hiding from them or being arrested by them. It's never been, I'm gonna help you and you don't have to ever worry about being an addict again.
Lamoth is back in Fitchburg only to visit. He's made a new life in Florida, even saved enough money to buy a moped.
Up here, I couldn't even get a sandwich.
You're laughing, you're smiling. Do you feel dramatically different about your future?
I have hope.
Stephanie Leyden, WGBH News.
That's amazing. Joining me now, Gloucester Police Chief Leonard Campanella. Good to see you, Chief, again. How are you? John Rosenthal, you know him, founder and chair of Friends of Boston's Homeless, Stop Handgun Violence. The two teamed up in June to form a new organization, Police Assisted Addiction and Recovery Initiative, or PARI, to help other departments implement Gloucester's model. John, good to see you, too. You know, that story is so incredible, but there's some who are resisting. Let's deal with your own men and women for a second. That's social work. I was going to use the line Stephanie did. They're trained to be cops, to arrest people for crimes, to do law enforcement. How hard was it for them to buy into your agenda, Chief?
Well, I think there was a little resistance at first. You know, there's a traditional way of doing law enforcement, but you approach the conversation with, we're not going to stop anything we're doing on the supply side. We're not going to stop being police officers. We're going to add this element and see if we can come around to helping people. And it was quickly adopted.
But even your DA has had some qualms, has he not?
You know, John is a great guy, and you know, I respect.
But he's had some qualms.
He's had some qualms.
And is the notion that you really, beyond his conceptual difficulties, if I can put it that way, that you don't have the power to decide whether someone should be prosecuted for a crime? You just have to do your job. Is that the notion?
I guess it is his notion, yeah.
So you're helping to spread the word. I didn't even know you're involved in this, John Rosenthal. We all know you from Stop Handgun Violence. How successful is the spreading of the Gloucester model been in the state and around the country?
So the Police Assisted Addiction and Recovery Initiative, we founded that in June to support the Gloucester initiative and help replicate it across the country. And it's been amazing. I mean, not only have 400 people come into the Gloucester Police Department, all have been placed into treatment. Over 300 treatment centers from here to California have offered beds with or without insurance. And right now, about 120 police departments in roughly 20 states have replicated this program. So in those states, we have maybe 400 or 500 more people in treatment.
Why did the police chiefs on the Cape say no to this thing? What's their problem with it? I mean, beyond the humanitarian aspect to this, it seems to me, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, it's a hell of a lot cheaper than throwing somebody in a can, prosecuting them, as hard as it is to find a bed or appropriate treatment. At the end of the day, the bottom line is better here, no?
Right, and I don't know that the chiefs have said no. I think it's, any department can do what's right for its community. They don't necessarily have to join Parry, or they don't necessarily have to do the Gloucester model. I know that there are chiefs on the Cape who are doing great work on the demand side of the issue and just chose to do their own thing in their own community.
You know, one of the things I was going to say, John, and you're living proof of this, well, maybe half of this, about the impact. Most of America didn't want to hear this when we thought these problems were only problems for people of color in inner cities. And then all of a sudden, when we learned that 90% of new heroin users in this country are white, all of a sudden we had an epiphany and we decided that people like him know what he's talking about. You've experienced this up close, have you not, in your own family?
Absolutely. I mean, when we started Parry, 8 months ago, I never would have imagined that just 2.5 weeks ago, I would have buried my 34-year-old nephew, Suffolk University MBA, who started like 80% of the people who end up with a needle in their arm. He started with back pain, overprescribed opioids. When they get cut off and you can't doctor shop anymore, he went to fentanyl and died literally on his own 2.5 weeks ago. This disease of addiction is chronic. There is no cure. And we need to change the treatment system. What's so unique about this is now there's a portal. There's a way into the treatment system. You don't have to know somebody. You just have to go to a police department and get into treatment. And when a police chief calls a treatment center, you get a bed, unlike most of
But do you, that's my question.
Yes.
I mean, we know there's a bed shortage. And first of all, how do you guys feel about the opioid thing that Baker has signed yet? Is that a step in the right direction? They're celebrating that as prevention.
First step. It's
a great first step.
Yeah.
Giant first step.
No doctor shopping, limited first prescription opioids. But is the money there for the kid, that guy, talk about inspiring, comes to you, or people like him, and you say, this is the kind of treatment you need a bed. Is there a bed for that man or woman?
I think if all 351 communities were to adopt an intake process like this, no, of course not. But there are so many different types of treatment that to say either we have a detox or no, you're out on the street is ridiculous. There's a whole spectrum of services available, and sometimes it's as simple as getting the person into an outpatient program or guiding that person towards a different program.
So are you able to place, I know you have an angel attached, which is a wonderful volunteer that works with it. Are you able to place every single person who comes to you, these hundreds of people who've surrendered stuff and said, I want treatment?
We've been able to place everyone so far, yes.
So why are you able to do it as a cop? And I've interviewed people here who've lost sons and daughters and say, I begged facilities to take care of my child. I begged them to give him a bed. I couldn't do it. Why are you able to do what they can't?
I think there are many reasons behind it. I think the system is set up that there is too little providers and too many people who need treatment. And when we have someone intaken in our station, we only care about that one person. So we don't stop making phone calls. We don't stop calling treatment centers or talking to providers until that person gets some sort of help. So it's a setup where there's not 100 people going to one place, there's one person coming to another place.
So we only have 30 seconds left. You're an optimistic guy, far more optimistic than I am. Let me face that about a whole lot of things. Is this going to become the national model in 5 years, 6 years, 10 years? John Rosenthal, quickly if you can.
Yes, this law enforcement-based initiative will become a national model, just like Governor Baker's opioid legislation, but there needs to be more money. And what I am most disappointed about that legislation is that there was a trust fund that passed the Senate that would have put a tax of 1 cent on every one of the 240 million opioid pills prescribed in Massachusetts last year. And we need to get the funds to put people into treatment because this is a disease that needs ongoing care.
Thank you so much, Chief. It's great to see you again.
Always
You're
a
doing
pleasure.
spectacular work. John, as always,
Thanks.
good to see you as well.